Being able to track the amount of water stored in the seasonal snowpack in the mountains is really important because over 1 billion people depend on that kind of water for their water resources. And in the western US, approximately 70% of our water comes from the snow that sits in the mountains that's part of our largest natural reservoir, but we don't have good ways of estimating how much is there. If we took this snow right here and melted it down, how much water would that be? That's the number we want, is the total amount of water from a water resource perspective. From an avalanche perspective, we want to know something about the stratigraphy and the strength. We are trying to develop the best possible approach to getting the snow water equivalent from space. And so we're testing some of those sensors from aircraft, from towers. All of this is to provide us with tools from space that give us information about how much water we have in the mountains. It is very important to be able to monitor how much water we have stored in the mountains, because you can think of it as the world's largest natural reservoir, which we don't have a great idea of how much exists there. Especially in the face of a changing climate, those patterns are changing, and we have increases in population and increases in water needs, and our dams can't hold all of that water. So as that water gets released earlier in a warming climate, we're going to have to make very hard decisions about how much to store in our reservoirs, how much to let through. And that's a problem that has to get agreed upon between lots of different folks that are interested in using that water for agriculture, for water supply in the cities. There is flood mitigation risks that have to be taken into account, hydropower activities, and recreation on the various rivers throughout the western US. The biggest project that we're focused on right now is supporting the NASA SNOWX mission. The sensor that is launching in 2023 is called NISAR, and it's a satellite which has a wavelength where the snowpack is essentially transparent. It goes all the way through the snow, bounces off that dirt, and comes back.
We are using the delay of the signal in the snow volume. Imagine when we transmit a signal from the satellite and you have a surface here, it bounces back from this surface. Then at another time that the satellite is going over the same surface again, if there is a snow, there's some snowfall, that means that the satellite will pass through the snow volume to the ground. And there is going to be a delay in that second pass. So it is that phase delay that we use to determine the snow depth.
Some of the tools that we are developing do relate to the avalanche problem. A lot of the avalanches typically involve, 1 to 5 people at the most. It is the natural hazard that kills the most people in the western US. From an avalanche perspective, we need a whole lot more detail. We need to know what each individual storm layer is like, if there are weak layers within that snowpack, and what the strength of those weak layers are. And we need that information at much higher spatial resolution and much higher temporal resolution than the snow hydrology problem. Our group has worked a fair bit with the snow micropenetrometer instrument, using those measurements to predict the conditions on a slope. So we would make a lot of profiles with that snow micropenetrometer and then use them in a machine learning approach to estimate whether or not a slope was stable or not. So this is a safety barrier that the control workers will use. They'll set up a mobile long-range artillery from right in front, but they would take that long-range artillery, shoot up into one of these starting zones, and attempt to create an avalanche that would come down onto the road. In the past, there's been 30 plus feet of snow that's ended up on the road here. We did one research project where we monitored the avalanches in this area using an array of infrasounds and captured some big avalanche events.
I am an infrasound specialist, which is the study of sound waves below 20 hertz, and I got into this business through the study of active volcanoes. There are a lot of parallels between flows from volcanoes and flows from snow avalanches. We can record both phenomena with specialized microphones in the infrasound band, and we can use those recordings to track the flows when we can't see the activity, and understand how big they are, how far they propagate, and use them in a hazard monitoring capacity. What we're able to do with our new instrumentation is to more comprehensively monitor these hazardous areas. And we have a few field sites, including ski areas, that are very, very busy in the winter season. So we work with the snow forecasters there to monitor activity along hazardous sections of highway. And what we're able to do is identify when snow avalanches have occurred and assess how big they are. One of the things we do is we build these infrasonic microphones, small, low-cost instrumentation that we build in our lab and are very effective for installing in large numbers. Because they're low cost, we can put out lots and lots of these sensors, and we can triangulate the sources of infrasound much more effectively.
Snow is really important from a climate perspective because it has a very, very high albedo. The albedo is the percent of the energy from the sun that's reflected from the Earth's surface. So there's a big feedback system there with the snow cover, where as we have less snow cover, the Earth is absorbing more energy. So knowing kind of when and where the snow is very important from a climate perspective. And things are changing fast, and so we need these tools in place as soon as possible.